Hello everyone, welcome to the video lecture series on media skills. This series is produced under the grants provided by Department of Information and Public Relations, Government of Karnataka in association with Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Karnataka State Akka Women's University, Vijayapura. Today we have with us Professor B.K.Ravi. He will be delivering a lecture on the topic Development Journalism. Dr. B.K.Ravi, presently working as a professor and chairman, Department of Communication, Bangalore University. He is also honorary president of the Karnataka State Backward Caste Federation. He has 31 years of teaching and research experience in the field of communication. During his academic tenure, he has presented research papers in India and abroad including USA, Poland, Japan, Morocco, New Zealand, Kenya, Qatar, Thailand, Malaysia, Canada and China. He has published articles in international research journals, guided 9 students for doctoral studies. He has chaired nearly 14 scientific sessions at international conferences in different countries. Dr. B.K.Ravi was on the scientific committee of the first International Forum on Media and Information Literacy constituted jointly by UNESCO and University of Fez, Morocco, Africa, where he chaired a session on media and information systems. Dr. Ravi is the member of editorial boards of many international journals. He has published 6 books on media. He has produced more than 25 programs for TV, several documentaries on various issues, nearly 20 productions for radio. He has produced many television documentaries on various issues. He is the member, National Executive Council and former chairman of Public Relations Council of India, Karnataka Chapter, President, Karnataka Journalism and Communication Teachers Association. He is the Secretary General, National Council India of Asia Communication Media Congress, Philippines. Also the advisory board member of Global Communication Association, Greensboro, North Carolina, USA. Dr. B.K.Ravi was the former registrar of Bangalore University. He also served as a special officer in Karnataka Fine Arts University. Now I invite Dr. B.K.Ravi to deliver special lecture on development journalism. Thank you.
Namaste, welcome and hello to everyone. Let us discuss about the concept of development communication. What is development communication? Development communication is the use of communication to assist social development in society or a community. It engages people to create favorable environments through the exchanging of information for a more sustainable society or community. In development communication, there are no hidden agendas, no sensationalism and no propaganda. Development communication aids progress and fosters change in a society. It works towards the greater good to develop and create opportunities in a community. Development communication can be considered both an art and science that is used to change the community and the country. It must transform people from a state of poverty into a state of financial stability, educational stability, and all other aspects of economic stability. Erskine Childers, an Irish writer and who was the BBC correspondent and United Nations senior civil servant, best defined development communication as development support communication is a discipline in development planning and implementation in which more adequate account is taken of human behavioral factors in the design of development projects and their objectives. The World Bank defined development communication as the integration of strategic communication in development projects based on a clear understanding of indigenous realities. Let us look into the history of development communication in India, where exactly we stand. Development communication in India started in the early 1940s when radio stations began with rural radio shows in the respective native languages of their listeners. Since the shows were broadcast in the local language of the people, more listeners tuned in. As all of us know, language is very intimate to the population. Indians, we have our own local languages which are very near to our heart. In the 1950s, media practitioners started making a more concentrated efforts with development communication as more organized initiatives started for community development. Back in the day, field publicity took place via face-to-face communication. We also call this as interpersonal communication, as all of us know. The main role players in development communication were radio stations and universities that taught agricultural studies, which is a very important factor to be considered. The role of All India Radio in achieving green revolution in India is really remarkable. We should never forget the contribution of All India Radio in achieving green revolution and also Operation Flood, which is a very, very important revolution which happened in this country. Eventually, the United Nations came on board using their extensive networks and connections to reach a wider audience. Non-governmental organizations, which we call NGOs, depended on interpersonal relations between the development communicators. The government continued to embark on public information campaigns at government-sponsored fairs in rural villages and that were in remote areas of India. Development agencies were often present at these fairs. Community radio played a massive role in the history of development communication in India. This created a wave for dissemination on a wider array of development issues. Then, what is the development communication theory? This theory teaches that media must be used for the development of the people. Any form of communication must be used to benefit a community and must not be used to manipulate or discourage. Communities must be able to engage in honest discussions. When communities discuss development, they often associate it with westernization or modernization. Here, I think we may have to recall the learner's theory, where the theorists very clearly said media plays the role of a catalyst in the process of development. McKinney in 2012 said, interpersonal communication as a base for participation of communities in their liberation from the unjust structures of their societies was part of this radical rethinking of communication and eventually in how communication for social change might be defined. Then, what is the objective of development communication? Then, what is the philosophy of development communication? Jamia's JF editor said that the philosophy of development communication is anchored in three main thoughts. They are purposive, value-laden and pragmatic. If used correctly, development communication changes lives for the better. Then what are the linkages between development communication and policy science? Development communication is a form of social science. Development communication and policy science is the study on how to use the art and science of the policy in a development communication context. It helps us to make sense of what we hear and see. It leads us to ask important questions that set the gears in motion for change. Well-known communication specialists and pioneers in the industry such as Shannon and Weaver, Schramm, Wesley and MacLean, Burlow and Kincaid and Laswell are known for developing the first social science oriented model of the communication process. Alexander G. Flaw said, the development communication and the policy sciences are generally regarded as distinct and mutually exclusive areas of study. Academics and degree programs specializing on either one rarely have anything to do with the other. These two branches of the social sciences, however, are inextricably linked. The links are fundamental and may be traced before either area was afforded the status of a science. Melkote and Steves said that while communication has been referred to as shared meaning, development is considered as empowerment in the development communication, where it seeks to understand the social issues at all levels. The evolution of communication, the evolution of development communication. The age of big media spanned between 1940s and 1960s. During this time, there were various approaches to development communication. On one of the approaches was the diffusion of innovations approach. Everett Rogers, a renowned professor in communication studies, famously known for popularizing the diffusion of innovation theory, and author of Diffusion of Innovations, taught that diffusion is the process in which innovation is communicated through different platforms or networks over a period of time to people in a social system. The type of communication is different because it shares new ideas or concepts. Quoting Rogers and Kincaid in 1981, Rogers states that communication is a process where participants create and share information with each other so that they can reach a mutual understanding. He explains that communication then becomes a process of convergence or divergence as people exchange information with each other. Rogers explains that diffusion is a type of social change, stating that when new ideas are invented, then shared and either rejected or adopted depending on the consequences, social change takes place. Let's go way back to the time of the aftermath of the Second World War. It was then discovered that the people were agents of reinforcement. In the 1970s, the socio-economic scenario at that time gave little hope for development communication to progress. Again, radio played the biggest role during pre-independence of India. Non-governmental organizations and other educational facilities created radio stations to broadcast. As government created development initiatives, these would then be communicated to others via radio broadcast. The government's approach to development communication was unidirectional and broad. Development communication has been kept alive through the years through the help of various non-governmental organizations and volunteer groups who used various forms of media such as art, street plays, song and dance to communicate different development programs to the people. With a high rate of illiteracy among the people of India, we must not forget these people who use creative forms of communication to help people understand the messages of development. Citizens sharing development communications. Citizens who share development communication news with the people they meet help spread the news of positivity and encouragement that change is on its way. When government is preparing the streets for upgrade, the news among people travel and a sense of excitement for betterment is created. Through localized mass media theory, citizens talk among themselves to local leaders and to the governments. And here we should not forget the fact of what is called the concept of opinion leaders, their influence on the people. How can you share development news with others? Let us remember what development news is first. What is development news then? Coverage of events and programs that create a better life for citizens. Reporting of ideas to improve a society. Summarizing government policies so that people can better understand. The communication of news that positively impacts a person's life. And who are these development communicators? Who is a development communicator? Is it just a specialized reporter or a journalist? Yes and no. While there are media houses that specifically hire reporters to cover developmental issues, anyone who shares the news of development and betterment is a development communicator. Development communicators are fair and truthful in the reporting and simplify complex in detailed policies to help even the illiterate person to better understand the events and happenings of the government. Development communicators do not share propaganda and sensationalism and does hide or cover the truth from the people. And what is the status of development communication today? In today's world, development communication has great demand. Citizens question media houses and radio stations about government programs and developments. Citizens hold the media accountable, asking them to tell the truth on developments. People are more enthusiastic and optimistic about the way they learn about new development from the government. With the commencement of new digital technologies, people no longer have only radio or street art to learn about development communication. Social media is a group of internet-based applications that use web technologies. Social media allows users to communicate with each other through these internet channels, bridging the digital divide among the people. There are several social media channels. The most common ones are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube, and also WhatsApp, an instant video and chat messaging platform, has also gained popularity over the recent years. Social media has become a powerful force for communicating development news. Social media has gained popularity in the world, with media experts saying that the internet has altered the forms of human interaction. Development communication through hashtags. Studies have shown that hashtags are driven by motivation to highlight a particular situation, a circumstance, an activity, or relative to the steady social ills in society. Hashtags are strategically used to generate a gathering online, very similar to that of a person gathering people together on a street for a protest. Hashtags brings content together to ensure inclusivity. For example, government projects now have strategic hashtags, so that when a person does an online search for that particular hashtag, they will be able to find a web of information relating to that topic. Do you remember any of these hashtags? Take a look here. Transforming government, Swachh Bharat, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, selfie with my daughter, Aadhaar, development communication through mobile journalism. In a commentary on diverse education website speaking about mobile journalism, Alisa Richardson said, "I came to believe in mobile journalism at the height of the Arab Spring, as nations across the Middle East, the North Africa erupted into a series of citizen-led protests in late 2010. I watched ordinary citizens depose leaders like Egypt's Hosni Mubarak." To best define the term mobile journalism, Richardson shares the experience of citizen journalists who brought news to light in the controversial elections in Iran. Citizen journalists used to use their mobile cameras and send footage online. She also shared that when Gaddafi was captured from a drained hole, the only footage of the Libyan dictator's capture came from a mobile phone from a citizen journalist. Mobile journalism allows reporters or citizens to use their wearable devices such as a mobile camera and gather footage to highlight a situation or breaking news. This allows news to be shared sooner rather than later. Mobile journalism is fast and almost instant. Mobile journalism shares news along before reporters and cameramen arrive on the scene. While many people have rejected mobile journalism, the reality is that social media has turned everyone into a journalist today. At a simple click of a button with a smartphone, you can go live on any social media network and stream a happening, most times without the consent of the person or persons involved. Young journalists, even seasoned ones, must be cautious to not only chase the stories that attract the masses, while it may sell. Communicators today have a solemn responsibility to the public to share the developments of the government, to hold the government responsible for completing any said development programs, and most of all to ensure that the reporting is fair without fear and favor. Communicators must cultivate an ethos of education among citizens through their communication. Using modern day tools such as the ones we discussed earlier, development communication must share the good news with citizens. When reporting on development issues, ensure that your articles ignite dialogue among people. These dialogues must be able to create awareness among people so that they can change the way they live, the way they play, and the way they work. Development communication must pave the way for new knowledge and to develop knowledge among the people. Everyone is entitled to knowledge and must be shared freely. Remember that above all, development communication must raise the knowledge of the people and create better lives for all of us. Thank you.